Hello out there, YouTube. This is Ed Pollock again from Pollock's World of Entertainment. Thanks for tuning into my channel. This is it. This is going to be the spoiler review of Avengers Endgame. I did do a non-spoiler review, and there's only so much you can go into without spoilers on the movie. So in this video, there will be spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie yet, if you don't want to know what happens, if you do not want spoilers, please exit the video immediately. If you do, if you're okay with spoilers and you want to get my take on with how things go with the movie and how things end and everything, yeah, please, yep, stay tuned. That is what I am getting into. Okay, to begin with, let me first say that the movie is absolutely outstanding. It's an outstanding movie. It is one of the best, and I certainly hope it overtakes Avatar for number one all time. It is a much more. It's a movie that should be number one, as opposed to Avatar that happened to be in the right place at the right time and did have the special effects. And the special effects are nice. And of course, Avengers Endgame has its share of special effects as well. But in terms of the actual movie, there is no comparison. Avengers Endgame is, to me, is much better than Avatar. And I definitely feel that Avatar benefited from when it came out and what came out after it, or the lack of no real major blockbuster movies really came out for quite a while after Avatar was released. So it benefited greatly at the theater from the lack of big time competition that Avengers Endgame is not enjoying. And Avengers Endgame is seeing a lot of competition, a lot of big blockbusters that are coming out. As far as the movie itself goes, the movie begins basically where Infinity War ended, except it goes into the future and what happens when half of the population is erased, and that is quite difficult for any society to deal with, let alone all societies in the universe. And in Endgame, they focused in on obviously Earth and Earth's reaction to losing half of its population, and that was quite an adjustment to have to make. As you would expect that it would be. And then what they did is they found Thanos. And they did go and they killed Thanos. Actually, they went and they found him, and then Thor took his hammer and basically impaled Thanos. So it basically removed his head. And Thor basically said afterwards he just went for the head this time. Going back to Infinity War when Thanos told him he should have gone for the head. He did it this time and took Thanos out. Unfortunately, it didn't change anything as far as they still were without half of the population, and it remained that way until Ant-Man happened to be removed from the quantum realm. And as far as Ant-Man was concerned, he was in the quantum realm for a matter of hours, and yet years had actually passed by when he came out of the quantum realm. Now, when he came out of the quantum realm, he came out with, it was a stray animal, a rat and a stray animal that basically got Scott Lang, Ant-Man, out of the quantum realm. And to me, that was a reach. I understand that things happen, but when you have when you have a situation where you would typically need geniuses to pull somebody out of the quantum realm, and a stray animal somehow manages to turn on the machine and do it, that's a bit of a reach. That I feel that they could have done better than that for getting Ant-Man out of the quantum realm. Then once he was out of the quantum realm, he realized that the quantum realm was a way to time travel and potentially go back in time and prevent Thanos from ever getting all of the Infinity Stones. Which, of course, when he met up with Captain America and Black Widow and the rest of the Avengers, yeah, that was the idea. Now, unfortunately, when they talked with Tony Stark, Iron Man, it, uh, according to Tony, they were treading on very, very difficult circumstances, as far as, not circumstances, but more when you're trying to change the past in order to save the future. And that has trouble written all over it, because what you can end up doing is causing more trouble than what you're actually solving. This happened to be a very extreme case when you lose half of your population. To take the chance and take the risk and try to see if it can be fixed. So, but then Tony Stark figured out how to time travel. He figured out the key to time travel in the quantum realm, and that it could be done and it could be controlled. And that was the key point, is actually controlling where you were going, when you were going, and who was going. And so the group split up into teams, and each team was going to go and track down at least one Infinity Stone. And of course, on Earth in 2012, when you had the first Avengers movie, you actually had 3 Infinity Stones basically all in the same place. So you could track down 3 of them in one quick moment. You had the Tesseract that was being hunted down by Loki and being basically saved by the Avengers. You had another Infinity Stone that was actually in Loki's scepter, and you also had the Time Stone that was in what was to become Doctor Strange's domain when he actually became Doctor Strange. At that point, he wasn't Doctor Strange yet. And so we they were meeting with the Ancient One in the battle during the Battle of New York, and so just like that, they were able to get 3 Infinity Stones all together in one spot. And of course, they managed to get the other Infinity Stones, and when they did so, when they got the Soul Stone, they had to make a sacrifice. And in this case, you had Black Widow and Hawkeye, who were going for the Soul Stone, and both of them wanted to be the one to be sacrificed. And both thought that they were very worthy to be sacrificed. They felt the other was more important to survive, and it ended up being Black Widow who was sacrificed. And so Hawkeye ended up with the Soul Stone, brought it back, and they ended up getting all of them together. And then it was decided, because of the type of radiation that was coming out, which was gamma radiation, which was right up the Hulk's alley, he would be the one to take on the gauntlet and make the snap to bring everybody back. And he got the gauntlet, he made the snap, and in the process, also, as he put the gauntlet on, Thanos came back from 2014. As in 2014, the 2 people who went back in time, one of those being Gamora, and Gamora actually wasn't with the team, but he was able to track down the Avengers and go into the future from 2014 till when they were trying to get the gauntlet together with all of the Infinity Stones, and he came into the future to try to retrieve them off of the Avengers. He almost succeeded. It got to the point where he and Captain Marvel were vying for the Infinity Gauntlet, and he actually used one of the stones the Power Stone, to get her away. And then when he went to put it on, she was trying to remove it. Tony Stark ended up coming in and fighting, and he fought with Thanos over the gauntlet and all of the stones. And somehow Tony Stark ended up with the stones, and he had his own Infinity Gauntlet, and put the stones into his Infinity Gauntlet. The one that Thanos had, he tried to use, and then he discovered that the stones weren't there. And then Tony Stark had them in his gauntlet, and made the remark, and this is after Thanos said he is inevitable. And Iron Man's response when he had his Infinity Gauntlet with the Infinity Stones was, "I am Iron Man." And he got it, and he made the snap, and Thanos and his army disappeared. His army disappeared first, and then Thanos, realizing his defeat was there, sat down, and then he as well disappeared. It was the battle that took place with all of the Avengers, with Captain Marvel, Iron Man, Captain America, and Captain America wielding Mjolnir from Thor, and with Thor was Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. It was an absolutely epic battle. But when Tony Stark, Iron Man, got it and he ended the battle, he also ended up ending his own life. He sacrificed himself to save the team and to save the world. When it comes to endings to a movie and getting things done, getting things taken care of, that really takes the cake. You can't really do better than that. And I had someone who had also seen the movie and basically said that's the best ending they've ever seen in their life. And it was. You get done what you need to get done. You have a sacrifice. You had two sacrifices. So two Avengers ended up being sacrificed. Two of the original Avengers. You had another Avenger in Captain America, who at the conclusion was retiring. He turned over the reign to his friend, who was Falcon, and was now becoming the new Captain America. You had Iron Man, who sacrificed himself for the future of the Avengers, and the future of having everything reversed as far as the snap goes. You had Thor then joining the Guardians of the Galaxy, and you had Hawkeye returning to his wife and kids, and talking to his daughter, who he had also called Hawkeye. And so that's kind of where it ended. There was no after credits scene other than there was a chime, which kind of paid homage to the first Iron Man movie that started off the MCU. And that chime was Tony Stark building his first Iron Man armor. And all of this was absolutely outstanding. It was nice having the chime. It was a nice touch. I hope that this is not the end, really the end of Tony Stark. I hope they bring Robert Downey Jr. back, at least in limited capacities. Being Marvel, being what Marvel is, being having its history, I don't feel that Iron Man, that Black Widow, should just end and never come back. I'm not saying that they should do another solo Iron Man movie, or that they should do a Black Widow movie, although that could still be coming because the Black Widow movie is apparently supposed to be a prequel. But nonetheless, those characters should not necessarily be completely done. I understand that what has a beginning has an end, but it's Marvel. Nothing has to end in Marvel. Things evolve, that they never necessarily completely end. And as far as Thor being with the Guardians of the Galaxy, that promises to have a lot of comic relief. Having Thor in his current incarnation, that has a lot of there is a lot of comedy with Thor in his current version. And I definitely can't emphasize that enough. Being with the Guardians of the Galaxy, that are known for being a comedic version of the MCU. I hope that they take advantage of that and keep that going. That certainly can be exploited for at least a couple movies, 2 or 3 movies with Thor being with the Guardians. I'm sure that could last more than one, but in general, the movie itself was outstanding. It covered and it ended what it needed to cover and what it needed to bring an end to, a conclusion. And that is what it was. That is what it was meant to be, to bring an end, to bring a conclusion to story arcs. And it did its work. I hope that these conclusions, that these ends are not complete and where a character can't be reused or reinvigorated or at least somehow utilized down the road. But it was still a nice conclusion to the original Avengers and bringing the original Avengers story arc to an end. The big thing that the movie did was it opened a very big can of different options. It opened up the possibility of infinite Earths and infinite possibilities. There was a TV show that used to be on TV. It was called Sliders, and it aired basically from 1995 to 2000, and it talked about all the different possibilities that could happen if things happened in a different way, such as the Russians winning the Cold War and the Russians ruling America, and what life would potentially be like. The entire TV show was based off of that, and the characters in the TV show were they were what basically would be normal, regular people. A couple of them being scientists, but still normal, regular people. They didn't have superpowers. They didn't have any kind of extraordinary abilities other than being scientists. And there was a lot of comic relief with the other characters, but nonetheless, it was it was based on the idea of unlimited Earths, unlimited realities, unlimited dimensions. It was basically sliding from Earth to Earth, in which each Earth was a bit different, and what was happening on each Earth would be a bit different, and there were a whole lot of variety of different Earths that they would visit. And now Marvel has adapted that into the MCU. That can be very good. It also can be a problem because that can confuse an audience, because in the case of Sliders, they were really just adapting different Earths into their different episodes, into their different seasons. But the characters would basically stay the same. The characters were basically human characters. In this situation, what you have is unlimited Earths and characters with, in some cases, almost unlimited abilities, and a variety of abilities and a variety of environments. And while that can be great as far as going in different directions and not really having a limitation of directions, it can be a problem because that can confuse an audience, and especially going from one movie to the next. It can confuse an audience, and it could potentially bring down the MCU, where the excitement for a movie, the excitement for a series of movies is not quite there because audiences don't know what to make of it. And so when you have a confused audience, when you have an audience that doesn't quite know what to make of what they're seeing, and what they don't know what you don't know what to expect. It's there are being different options. There are also, it can go well. It also can go very badly, and it can basically take the MCU off of its perch if it's not handled correctly. If it's not handled where you have where people understand what they're seeing. As the MCU has gone, you can watch any MCU movie and understand it, and understand what they're trying to do, understand the characters, without having watched the other movies. Which is important because with as many movies as the MCU has, it's pretty difficult to have actually watched all of them. There are a lot, and that's a lot of time, and some of them are very long. And so, I mean, the movies can be quite long, and you have a lot of them, and you have a lot of introductions, so you have to understand who these characters are, why they're there, what they have done, how did they get there, and that's been one thing. But when you're introducing parallel Earths, parallel dimensions, and infinite Earths, so now you have different characters having different backgrounds on what can be completely different, different Earths, different outcomes, where anything and everything can be changed and or different. And I'm hoping Marvel isn't biting off more than it can chew when it's introducing that, because there's a lot there, and you really do not want to confuse your audience when if you're trying to put a movie together, if you're trying to put a team together, or at least introduce a new member of what potentially will become a team. And you have a lot of different scenarios. It basically kind of confuse an audience, and I'm hoping the MCU hasn't bitten off more than it can chew with this, because that is what I'm concerned about, is that they're not able to put everything together. Because at some point, they're going to have another team-up movie, another Avengers movie, or they may call it something different, but it has to mix, and people have to understand it without having necessarily watched the other movies. So, again, just to summarize, overall, it is a great movie, and in terms of time, the movie had to be as long as it was. In fact, probably really needed to be longer to really get an understanding of what you're witnessing, and the details of these characters and how they react to certain situations. You didn't have a choice. It had to be that long. In fact, it probably should have been even a bit longer to really get into the characters and their responses, and to understand more of why they would do what they would do, how they would react the way that they would react. And again, just to kind of summarize, they've opened a can of worms in terms of an infinite Earths. The movie itself is absolutely outstanding, and when you have two Avengers who were really being sacrificed to reverse the snap and bring everybody back, and they did what they went out to do, and you always thought it was going to be Captain America putting his life on the line to get things done. You always thought he would be the leader, and he would be the one who would get things done. And it turns out, ironically, it ended up being Tony Stark, who Captain America said that Iron Man, Tony Stark, was not the person that put his life on the line to go over the wire, to cover the wire so somebody else could go through. And it turns out he was. And Captain America ended up getting the Hollywood wedding, the Hollywood ending, where he basically lived out his life with his love interest from his first movie that he thought he would never get a chance at. And he did. So it was ironically, and it ended very ironically from what you would have expected. You would have expected that Captain America would be the one to sacrifice himself because that's Captain America. And it actually ended up being Iron Man, being Tony Stark, and Tony fulfilled and made his legacy, and he basically saved everyone. He came through. He came through when he was needed the most. And that sums up the video. Please like and subscribe. That definitely will help me as I increase in subscribers and views and viewer time. All of that will help me, especially going into the longer term. And thanks again for tuning into my channel. Again, that's Pollock's World of Entertainment. And other than that, thanks very much. Have yourself a wonderful night and take care.